Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So I know I said Unholy DK was going to be next, but I got the itch to play my warrior last night on stream, or at least as of last night as of recording. And so here we are. Instead of Unholy DK, we're getting Fury Warrior this time. So I did a +5 freehold as the dungeon run on this, so that'll be coming up here in just a moment. But thoughts on the Fury Warrior? Honestly, feels pretty much the same as it does in BFA. There's definitely some big talent changes that make the spec a little bit more interesting to do talent-wise. The BFA talent build was kind of one note, whereas here you have some pretty decent talent options, as you can see here. From a feel standpoint, it still feels really fast. It still feels very satisfying to play. Rampage is still a very satisfying button to hit as like a big rage dump. I'd have it at the 80 cost rage dump. So the build overall feels really good. The spec still feels really good. It's very similar to play. There's not much change. If you're looking for a spec that is kind of completely different, Warrior in general I don't think is going to be your choice, but Fury feels almost no different. Like I said, the biggest changes are in the talents, where you can get some decent little variety, and you go from there. But for the most part, you're playing Fury Warrior as it was in BFA, and depending on how you felt about that will determine what you're at. So let's take a look at the talents. So I ran with Fresh Meat, just to give Bloodthirst and always a chance to always enrage on the first time you hit, and a 15% increased chance to trigger Enrage. Enrage is really good for a Fury Warrior. It's your mastery is basically increasing your damage while you're enraged, so the more you can be enraged, the better off. Sudden Death's still pretty good for single target in particular. Allows you to get basically free executes, which, remember, executes a rage generator for Fury, so it'll be a good build there. Double time, any of these you can really use. I do double time for the mobility. This is the biggest difference. I chose Frenzy, where I get an increased haste for 12 seconds, up to 3 times, so it can be up to 9% haste for 12 seconds. If you rampage on different targets, it resets the effect, so you can really get pretty decent levels of haste. I like this one for the two-handed Titan's Grip build, rather than the SMF build, Single-Minded Fury. The guides always recommend Onslaught, which is usable during Enrage. So after you use your Rampage, you Onslaught immediately to get that 15 rage back up, and it does pretty good damage on a 10-second cooldown. So you add ability to your rotation, which also works. I personally really like the way Frenzy felt. I ran some sims on my character at his current stat level and actually found that Frenzy is 5% more DPS than Onslaught is. Just that one talent change is that big of a change. So I'm not sure why my Feelycraft build is doing better than the Simcraft build, but maybe it's just a stat thing. And the way my stats are set up, this character is not a main character, so he's not super optimized. 35 row, you can pick any. I choose Warpaint for dungeons just because Bounding Stride doesn't necessarily matter that much, because unless you're wiping a lot, Bounding Stride doesn't hold a lot of value inside Mythic Plus dungeons. It may in raids, but not so much in Mythic Plus dungeons. So I just choose Warpaint, where you are 10% reduced damage while enraged. So you can see I'm building this build is really set up around being enraged as much as humanly possible. Here's another difference from the guides. Frothing Berserker is the one that they use. 20% chance to immediately refund 20 rage, which is good for your rage regeneration. I chose Seethe, where you get 2 more rage off of Bloodthirst, 4 more if it crits, and I like to run a high crit build with this character, so Seethe for me felt much better. The difference here was pretty minimal, I think, between the two. It's just a matter of if you're crit based, then Seethe might actually work better. Frothing Berserker is probably going to generally work better with lower stats going into Shadowlands. 45, Dragon Roar still is the best. Bladestorm, they did a little bit of tweaking to Bladestorm to make it better, but it's still not good enough. And Meat Cleaver, in theory, is good for really big sustained AoE, but I like Dragon Roar. It's a 30-second cooldown. It does a lot of damage, and when it crits for 3 times normal damage. So as you can see, my build is revolved around a lot of crit, a lot of rage to uptime. So it's really fun to play. And then at 50, Reckless Abandon is what I choose. It just pushes Raging Glow and Bloodthirst damage. Again, Bloodthirst combined with Fresh Meat, you get more enrage time out of this. So it just is really good. Anger Management is also good if you want high recklessness uptime. So here, with every 20 rage you spend, remember that Rampage is 80 rage. So every time you use Rampage, you're essentially taking 4 seconds off your Recklessness cooldown. Recklessness is a 1.5 minute cooldown. So you can get this in theory down to under a minute in some cases with good enough rage generation. Siegebreaker is good for against sustained AoE. It's like Colossus Smash essentially. So it's good for like more burst scenarios, but I just really like Reckless Abandon because of the ability with Bloodthirst and Raging Blow. I do a lot of synergies with Bloodthirst in my build. So that's the talent build I have. There's some good variations. Again, you can choose Onslaught, Frothing Berserker, Anger Management would be there. Meat Cleaver if you're in heavy sustained damage. If there's a lot of adds in the fight, it's going to be a long trash fight. So I would see like MDI guys potentially using this because they pull really big. So getting those next 4 abilities, so you thinking 2 Raging Blows, a Bloodthirst, and a Rampage all inside 1 Whirlwind window, it just makes your AoE rotation a little bit smoother. Less use of Whirlwind there. How good it actually is numbers wise, I don't know, but in theory, this is kind of, I think, the goal that it's trying to achieve. So overall, I really enjoyed Fury Warrior. Actually, it's still, I would put it, if I had to power rank them right now based off of what I played, I'd put it behind Frosty K and Windwalker Monk for me in terms of fun. I had a ton of fun with Fury Warrior though. I definitely recommend it if you're looking for somewhat of a fast-paced spec. You get a different change of pace in arms. It's a little bit of a slower pace spec, and of course the tank spec in Proud Warrior, which go check out the video for my thoughts on that. Is positive. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get you on over to this dungeon run. It's a 3-hole +5. As you see here, I have my details up and working. In this dungeon run, it didn't because for whatever reason, details wasn't loading properly. On that character alone, you'll actually see it in the middle after Sky Captain Crag on the bridge that I try to reset and reload to get details working so I could see how like the damage felt. And for some reason, my game crashed. So you'll see me deal with that in the middle of this dungeon run. So I'll see you on the other side, and then we'll wrap up some final thoughts and talk about what's coming up over the next little bit. So see you on the other side, guys. So this is I guess I better do that. So this is a +5. So I forgot to change my. And it just does allow for a way for you to continue to repeat the dungeons without them just being like the same Dire Maul tribute runs over and over again. So there's 2 ways to get a Mythic Keystone. The first is that you just do a Mythic 0 if no one has a Keystone. Or in like this case, there's someone that has a what's called a +5 key, so it's 5 difficulty steps higher than the base difficulty level of Mythic 0. And I'll get a key off of this. And so things like figuring out exactly how to route the dungeons become important. So how do you go through the dungeons? Things like the old tribute runs or like Dire Maul tribute runs are a pretty good comparison tool, because in Dire Maul tribute runs you had specific difficulty amps, you had you had certain bosses that you did or did not want to kill. And so there we go. So you had like, I think it was in tribute runs, you had certain bosses you'd either kill in certain orders, or you had certain bosses that you could or couldn't do. Details.
I've got it on good authority.
Oops.
Captains are gathering to meet. If we get into that party,
There we go.
cut off all the heads from this Hydra in one fell swoop.
Come on. Reload. Why did that happen? My game crashed. Whoops. What the heck? I'll have to look at it afterwards. Kind of wanted to see what the damage meters on this look like, but that's not going to happen. It's fine. We're going to get drinking, boys. A little early on that. I'm not sure why he's pulling all of that, but okay. Let's say we're just gonna skip these guys, or
Put your steel to the test. Hunting steel! Hunting steel! Bury me with my blade.
forget about that fish. He freaks me out every time. Oh, thank you for bringing me over here. I like this guy's a pally tank, so he just doesn't care about anything. Alright. We're gonna be way over on trash. Ugh. Hate grabbing this freaking pig. There we go. That's standing it out. games caster thing I wish I could hide, but it is what it is. We're gonna 3-key this though.
Stand against me, swine! Allow me to educate you.
Alright, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that dungeon run. It's a good old classic freehold +5, as you can tell, the first ever Mythic Plus dungeon that I'd run on that character. So, but again, wrap up thoughts on Fury Warrior. Really fun, lots of build diversity that I think actually is going to work out really well. Seems like it's going to lean really heavily into crit based, which is good for me. I love crit based builds. And I think it's going to be a spec that is going to be pretty solid overall in Shadowlands. Again, it may not ever be top tier, but I think if you have a Fury Warrior, you're never making a bad choice. You know, you may not be making the best choice, but you're not making a bad choice. So, alright, so kind of looking at schedule, I'm not going to actually give out a specific schedule here because I think it's just going to depend on one of my itches to play, but just to recap the DPS specs that we're doing, we've already done Frosty K, obviously Fury Warrior here now. We'll be doing Arms Warrior, Feral Druid, and Windwalker Monks. We're only getting 5 DPS specs versus all 6 tanks, just because those are the DPS specs that I have. I may do Marksmanship Hunter as well, just because I do have a Hunter there, but I've not had any desire to play my Hunter. I've really enjoyed my Warrior. So at least those 5 DPS specs, and then I'll probably do a Mistweaver video for a healer one as well. So next up will be whatever DPS spec I feel like playing next. I can't promise which one, but most likely Arms, Feral, or Windwalker. Those are your 3 most likely options. So until the next video, everyone, I hope you stay safe. Hope you wear your mask. I'll see you next time.